In this video, I'm going to show you how to adjust a mechanical rear derailleur. This video will apply whether you're installing a brand new derailleur or trying to get the one that's on your bike now working properly. All that you really need for this service is a screwdriver that will fit the limit screws of your rear derailleur. Or if you have a SRAM mountain bike rear derailleur, you'll need an Allen wrench, and it's usually a 3mm. You'll also need a way to elevate the rear wheel so you can spin the pedals and shift the derailleur. The first step in derailleur adjustment is to adjust your limit screws, and those are going to be located on various parts of the derailleur depending on the make, model, and if it's a road or mountain. Oftentimes there's going to be an H and an L indicating whether you're adjusting the high or the low end of the cassette. On this rear derailleur, the H is located right here and the L is up here. So the H stands for high, which is your highest gear, which is also your smallest cog. And of course, L stands for low, which is going to be your lowest gear, which is your biggest cog. As an example of limit screws located in different parts of the derailleur, on this SRAM mountain bike derailleur, this is going to be your high screw, so the smallest cog, highest gear, and this is the low screw. And this one adjusts with a 3mm Allen wrench. Adjusting the limit screws can be done with or without the chain on the bike. We'll adjust the high limit screw first. The first thing that you want to do is take out all the tension in the cable by shifting the rear derailleur so you're in the smallest cog. Now make sure there's no tension on this cable, and you can feel it with your finger. If you feel any tension, turn the barrel adjuster clockwise, and that will take out any remaining tension on the cable. Now we're going to turn the high limit screw so that the jockey wheel is perfectly in a straight line with the smallest cog. Tightening the limit screw or turning them clockwise will push the rear derailleur towards the middle of the cassette. So in the case of the high limit screw, it's obviously going to push the derailleur this way, and in the case of the low limit screw, it's going to push the derailleur this way into the middle cassette, and again, that's turning the limit screws clockwise. So in this case, even though I have all the tension out of the cable, the rear derailleur jockey wheel is a little bit too far towards the middle of the cassette. So I'm going to turn the high limit screw counterclockwise to back it out. That will allow the rear derailleur to line up with the smallest cog. Kind of hard to tell in the video, but now I've got the high limit screw backed out enough so that there's perfect alignment with the smallest cog and the jockey wheel of the rear derailleur. Now we're going to adjust the low limit screw, and you want to shift into the largest cog. Since we haven't fully adjusted the tension on the cable, what you want to do is push on the rear derailleur. So in case there's not enough tension, you're pushing it over as far as it'll go so that you make sure it's aligned with the largest cog. If you're adjusting the low limit screw with the chain off, get it set as best you can with your eyesight, again pushing on the rear derailleur. Then once you get the chain installed, you're going to check the alignment again, because this is the most crucial adjustment, because you do not want the chain going past the cassette and getting caught in the spokes. So if you are adjusting the limit screws with the chain on, what I would recommend doing is tightening both limit screws or turning them both clockwise 2 turns, and that way we are going to adjust the limit screws as the chain starts to try to drop into the small or the largest cog. And incidentally, if you get a new rear derailleur, typically the limit screws are turned clockwise almost all the way, so you have to back them out when you're making this adjustment. So I've turned both limit screws in about 2 turns, and now for the high screw, which is for the smallest cog, I'm going to keep backing it out until the chain will finally drop in there without making any noise. So it's not dropping in, so I'm going to adjust the high limit screw. So I'm going to back it out, and you want to do about 1/4 to 1/2 turn every time you make your adjustment. So it kind of dropped in there, but it bounced back, so I'm going to keep backing it out. That's a 1/2 turn. Okay, now it's dropped down in there, but it's still making a little bit of a noise, so I'm going to back it out about 1/4 turn. Still a slight noise, about another 1/4 turn, that should do it. Okay, now I can easily pedal without the chain making a noise. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. Now it's not going into the biggest cog, so I'm going to back out the low limit screw. Trying to jump up in there, but not quite. And again, about a quarter to half a turn every time. Okay, now it jumps up there, but it's still hesitating. Now part of this could be the fact that the tension on the rear derailleur cable is not fully adjusted yet, and we'll get to that in a minute. So what I recommend doing is actually pushing with your thumb on the rear derailleur. Now that we have our limit screws set properly, we're going to adjust the shifting of the rear derailleur by increasing or decreasing the tension on the cable. And that will make sure the chain shifts up and down the cassette like we want it. As you put more tension on the cable, that means you're shifting into an easier gear or a bigger cog. The way that you adjust tension on the cable of a rear derailleur is with a barrel adjuster. Oftentimes on road bikes or gravel or cyclocross bikes, the barrel adjuster is going to be at the rear derailleur. Whereas on a mountain bike, the barrel adjuster is usually up by the shifter. Regardless of where the barrel adjuster is located, turning it counterclockwise backs it out and puts more tension on the rear derailleur cable. And like I mentioned earlier, putting more tension on the rear derailleur cable will cause the chain to move up the cassette to an easier gear or larger cog. And taking tension off will cause the chain to move to a higher gear or a smaller cog. Before we start adjusting the tension on the rear derailleur cable, we want to make sure we have enough room to move the barrel adjuster. Now this is not a crucial step, but it's my recommendation. Turn the barrel adjuster all the way in until it stops moving. Then back it out half a turn. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take up slack in the cable by loosening this bolt. This one takes a 5mm Allen wrench. Then we're going to pull on the cable, take out the slack with your hand, and then tighten the bolt. Now we're going to shift the chain into a bigger cog, and there's probably going to be some hesitation. We're going to back out the barrel adjuster, putting more tension on the cable until we don't get any hesitation. Now we're going to keep shifting up the cassette into bigger cogs, and if you get any hesitation going into a bigger cog, back the barrel adjuster out by turning it counterclockwise. Likewise, if you get any hesitation of the chain dropping down into a smaller cog, then turn the barrel adjuster clockwise, reducing the tension on the cable. Just a note here, if you get the chain shifting well on one end of the cassette, but then you have trouble getting it adjusted at the other end of the cassette, you may have a bent derailleur hanger. I do have a video that shows how to adjust a bent derailleur hanger, and I'll link that in the description below. Once you've got the chain shifting well up and down the cassette, you've got the tension adjusted properly on the cable. And once the cable tension is adjusted properly, we're going to give one final check to our limit screws. Our final adjustment is to adjust the B screw, and that will typically be a screw on the back of the rear derailleur that's by itself. The B screw adjustment is not quite as crucial on road bikes or bikes without SRAM Eagle. If you have a mountain bike with SRAM Eagle, it's a little bit more crucial, and I'll show you how to do that with a little tool that they provide. So the B screw is going to determine how close the upper jockey wheel, also called the G wheel, sits to the largest cog. So when you adjust this, you want to shift the chain into the largest cog. So typically you want about a 5 to 6 millimeter gap between the jockey wheel and the largest cog. So you can take an Allen wrench. So this is a 6 millimeter Allen wrench, which I can use to kind of gauge it. So it looks like I have a little bit too big of a gap, so I'm going to turn the B screw counterclockwise. And by turning it counterclockwise, it's going to back the B screw out and allow the derailleur to get closer to the cassette. And just a tip here, since there's a lot of tension on the B screw, you can actually pull the derailleur back, loosen the B screw, and then let it go forward. If you did have to make an adjustment to the B screw, I would recommend shifting through the gears again just to make sure the indexing is still okay. If you have a mountain bike with SRAM Eagle, the gap between the largest cog and the upper jockey wheel is a little bit more crucial, so SRAM makes a tool that you can use to make sure that gap is set right. So again, with the rear derailleur shifted all the way up to the biggest cog, you would hold this tool up, and it has an outline of gears. So it's got an outline of the jockey wheel, and it's got an outline of the largest cog. You would keep adjusting your B screw until those outlines line up. If you have any questions or comments about this video, drop those in the comment section below. If you're not already subscribed to my channel and you're interested in further bike maintenance videos or bike and gear reviews, go ahead and subscribe below and hit the bell if you want to be notified when I post a new video. Thanks for watching.